Joining me now is Bill Morgan. Bill has amassed over 40 years of farming experience and has become one of the most respected consultants in the Ozark region. He's on a quest for the answers to what the cannabis plant desires to express itself as medicine. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Hey, good to be here, Wendy. Good to finally see you, right?
Yes, we've been chatting for a while now, and it's great to see your
I don't
face,
know,
of
chatting and
course.
secret drop-offs at your house and all that fun stuff, right?
Shh.
Oh,
It's so good to have you here. So, Bill, I wanted to ask you as a first question, because this show is about greens, smoking the greens, eating the greens, however we have green in our life. And the cannabis plant is a good example of greens. Is it a fruit, a vegetable, or an herb, or all three?
it's at least all three. It kind of goes from there. It's a vegetable. I've blended in smoothies. It's a fruit. I've got varieties that are like mango flavored, citrus, lime, so it's
Mhm.
the flavonoids and terpenoids are real fruity. It's a medicinal herb because that's what I do with it.
Mhm.
We squeeze the juice and the trichomes out and make medicine. So it's all those, but it's also to me kind of a communicator that's
Mhm.
coming from somewhere else because this plant has me firmly in her grips, and I serve the plant.
Ah, okay. Right. So it's kind of all of them.
It is.
I have definitely tasted a fruity flavor, I think because of terpenes. So when you mentioned so many things in there, flavonoids and terpenes, what's the difference? What exactly are we talking
Well,
about?
a terpenoid and a flavonoid, different molecules. One affects olfactory, and the other one taste bud. Basically, the same thing, but they kind of register differently in the body.
Mhm.
One's flavor and one's smell.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
it's interesting with cannabis, like with wine, the same way. You know how they'll take wine and swirl the glass,
Uh-huh.
right? And then where does it go? It goes to the nose, right? And then it
Mm-hmm.
goes to the mouth. Same thing with weed, you know.
Right. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
catches your eye, you stick it up to your nose, and then you light it up.
So I mentioned earlier, the show's all about greens and eating them and smoking them. So what are your thoughts? There are states that don't want people to smoke, right? How isn't cannabis, doesn't it lend itself to smoking and being healing?
I think historically, yes, that's always been the way. I mean, as close to the purest form to ingest it, and that would be smoking it. Get it
Mm,
right into your lungs, the maximum amount of uptake. I think smoking is, the greatest. It goes kind of down from there. A lot of people don't want to do that. I don't know why. It's
mhm,
dirty, whatever reminds them of something awful. I don't know
mm,
what it is, but it
mhm.
still, to me, is the best way to get the medicine as close to the way it was produced for us, into our body. Okay, like I'm digging up plants right now, right? So I just pulled this out of the ground today. From
Whoa.
one seed in 6 months, you have this literal tree, right? That's
Mhm.
developed in 6 months' time. Now, the fiber that comes from all, inside of the stem, some of the strongest material on the planet, right?
Wow.
It makes pounds of biomass, which could be used for fuel.
Mhm,
It makes medicine. It makes seed, a high protein seed, a hemp seed,
mhm,
And the only reason that Tyson Foods isn't using it is they've got relationships with other grain industries, right?
mhm.
Because this just makes way more sense.
Wow. So
But
that's a hemp plant, what you just showed. That's the
cannabis is cannabis.
right, right, right. But
Right.
that's the root of it.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
root of one plant in 6 months' time. That's how big, it was a tree. The
Uh-huh.
plants are huge, and
Wow.
it's in such a short period of time. And it's what's called a, bioremediator. You can plant it in toxic ground in 2 seasons. You can pull up cover crop in between and actually get certified organic, right?
Wow.
And
Mhm.
it's a carbon sequester. It sucks in all this, too much carbon that's in the air.
Mhm.
It's just, it's an amazing plant.
For sure. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were going to say it's all cannabis, I think. Uh,
It was. Cannabis
yeah.
is cannabis. You know,
Mhm,
we took it one way and kept breeding THC up. Well, those
mhm,
molecules came at a cost of the CBD, which had to give up something to get this THC up. And the
mhm.
CBD breeders are doing the same thing in reverse. So lower, 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 lower THC and higher, higher. Now the breeders are starting to talk to me about, okay, they're coming back. This plant is coming back to where it belongs
Hmm.
with both of these medicines together. You
Mhm.
know,
Nice.
as
Mhm,
far as efficacy goes, that's where it belongs. So,
mhm.
it's just kind of a stopgap to be in the CBD oil business right now, because eventually the breeding's going to come around to where it's all going to be there.
Right. Yeah, human beings do things like that, like try to separate it out somehow. This part's legal, this part's not legal. We have to somehow manipulate nature, and it just doesn't make any sense. Um,
No, it doesn't. And, I could talk for hours about the history of this plant and our history with it. We can do a segment someday on that,
mhm.
because, this plant and humanity have rolled together for a very long time.
Right. That's for sure. And in talking about hemp CBD side of it, there are people out there who I've heard them say, oh, it's just CBD. It's, you know, but I know that you're on the board of the Arkansas Hemp Association, and I'm sure that your thoughts about it are a little different than that. CBD is important, isn't it?
CBD is real important. We've been marginalized because of the marijuana industry,
Mhm,
but all the pundits will tell you, down the line, I don't know in how many years, Wendy, the marijuana side will be the small side, the CBD will be the large player.
mhm,
This is where it's going. This is the medicine.
mhm.
I deal with people all the time that are, looking for some kind of answer, and it requires both. It's not one or the other. It's not black and white, blue
Mhm.
or red.
Right, right.
This plant wants to take care of us, and right now CBD is the darling, and it was way overproduced the last couple of years, so the market's flooded, and
Mm, mhm.
it's difficult to compete in a market that's flooded with marginal product.
Right. Well, that's another thing, purchasing your CBD at the gas station may not be a great idea, right? Depending on what
Oh,
they've got. Usually not, it may not be the best product that you can get. I know, for instance, when I have consumed the products that you make, I see a complete difference in how it affects my body. And I know, that let's talk a little bit about that, because you blend all different cultivars together, don't you?
right. Instead of like blending, I grew 16 varieties in the products that you're ingesting. I grew 16 varieties, so they all were extracted together. It wasn't like each one was extracted and then it was put into some kind of a mix. The whole
Hmm.
selection of plants. And there again, I chose really based on basic information. And, the market for the fresh flower and pre rolls just wasn't, liking me. And so
Hmm.
I went into oil. And then here's this oil that comes out of it. And the extractor called me up and he's like, "What is this?" Right. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, "Oh, okay." So it's the complexity of all the different
Hmm.
cannabinoids that's in that particular variety that does it. But I didn't create it in the lab. I chose to grow all these specific different varieties of plants that just, they just married well together.
Hmm. Nice. I was interviewing Dr. Bridget Williams yesterday on another platform on the Relevant app, and she suggested we may not have even found the so-called best cannabinoid yet. There's still so much work to do. We were talking about CBD and THC, but we may not even know yet. And when you
Yeah.
have this blend of cultivars, whatever happened, maybe there's a cannabinoid in there that we don't even know yet why it's working so well.
And that's why I like it. That's why we call it the entourage effect. Science
Mhm.
would love to isolate one and say this cures this.
Right.
Humanity's so subjective. you know, it's just isn't going to work that way. I listened to an Israeli scientist one year at a trade show, and he said, "You guys don't spend a ton of time on genetics because we will make all these things in the lab. You just grow all the working parts, and then
Mm,
we can put specifics together. But in the meantime, the entourage effect of having all as many cannabinoids as I can collect, you know, in the product, it just throws a wider net. It gives me
mhm.
a better shot at like helping people out."
Yeah, wonderful. So I think in conclusion, we can say smoking your greens is worth the time for your health. What do you think? I already know, but I'm going to ask you to
Yeah,
say it.
yeah. I don't ingest anything until it's making trichomes. Once the little crystals, the trichomes are all over the leaves, oh yeah, then it's all there because that's how the medicine shows itself. And just once it gets to that point, ingest it any way you can, but the fresher the
Mhm.
better.
Nice. Well, thanks so much for joining me. How can people get in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram at BIOGEN LLC. That's Biogen LLC. And my website is ozarkmountainmedicine.com.
Well, I'm so delighted that you're here in the Ozarks making this medicine. And thanks again for joining me.